to a little Secret Santa being organized by Omer Coven. It's a little Secret Santa that he's using Elfster to register with. And just want to give it a shout out. I think it's a great idea. Very fun idea to, sort of get gifts for different people around the world playing the Ninth Age and to just have some fun with it. So I signed up. I'm registered right now. I actually have the person I have for Secret Santa. But I can't. I'm not going to show it, of course. And yeah, there's the deadline to RSVP is this Thursday, December 10th. So you've got about 5 days if you want to register. It's really easy. I'm going to leave a link in the description. And let's get into the battle report. Hello YouTube and hello Ninth Age community. This is Charles with Evershed Gaming and I've got another Ninth Age battle report. My opponent and I are playing Empire Sandstal versus Infernal Dwarves. This is a beta 3 Infernal Dwarves. I asked my opponent to roll, or actually I asked him to select a special scenario on the scenario supplement. He ended up rolling for it. And we played The Long March Home, which reads, "The long war is just about over, and your army has started the long march home only to find your path blocked by yet another foe. Push past them as quickly as you can, and if some were to fall, that just means a few less mouths to feed on the way home." So it's a marching columns deployment. The sort of scenario rules are: once the player has deployed all their units, excluding any ambushers or scouts, and they declare their intent to go first, they place a marker with its center within their opponent's deployment zone. Then the other player deploys the remaining units and places a marker with its center within their opponent's deployment zone. So, I mean, if you're playing marching columns and you place your 3 units, your opponent places their 3 units, and then you go, okay, I want to drop. You deploy everything else. You put your marker in your opponent's deployment zone, and that's your objective. And then your opponent will deploy everything else, and he'll place his marker in your deployment zone. So the other special rules are core units are worth half their amount of points. So there's a mouse you don't care about. You're just trying it home, and then you win the game by having the most scoring units within your marker at the end of the game. So sort of like breakthrough mixed with 2 pennies. So my opponent's Infernal Dwarf list, he's got a Prophet of Ashrok with the Seed of Authority, Wizard Master rocking Occultism. He's got an Overlord on foot with the Arrogant special rule, so that's pretty cool. He's got a Lamasu Scholar with the Breath of the Brass Bold, that's really good. He's got a kind of basic BSB with a 1-up and some good banners on him. He's got the big block of Infernal Warriors with the Ziggurat Regulars upgrade. They got a Flaming Standard. Of course, they got Shields too to make him extra resilient to shooting. He's got 2 things of Levies with Spears and Bows. They got Champions, of course, because the Chieftain's OP. He's got 15 Disciples of Lugar with Great Weapons and the Litigator special rule and a Champion. He's got 2 things of 3 Torokonoina with Great Weapons because they're cheap now. And he's got 2 Titan Mortars because they're like the best choice now. And he's got an Infernal Engine with a Napathroa, and it's the Steel Juggernaut. I've got a Mammoth Hunter Ogre Cons list. I think I was saying I was actually playing Empire Sandstal, but no, I'm playing Ogre Cons. I don't know why I said Empire Sandstal. So I have to give a shout out to the comments recently on my YouTube videos because they've been very educational. I actually always appreciate and try and respond back to people's comments. And I definitely learned how good the Mammoth Hunters were recently. I mean, I always thought they were pretty decent, but then I realized that they have armor 1, and I was like, that's stupid. That's so good. So I decided to give them a try. If anything, you got to give them a try before the points update comes out, and they go up in points. So we've got the Mammoth Hunter General. He's got a great weapon with the Blessed Inscriptions. He's got an Ogre Crossbow, Talisman Shielding. He's the General with the Wild Heart on a Tusker. I've got like just a Thaumaturgy Wizard Master with the Magical Heirloom. I've got the build for the Mammoth Hunter with the Wrestler's Belt and an Iron Fist. He's got Vanguard. And I also have another Mammoth Hunter who's the BSB in the list. He's got Karkadon's Resilience and an Iron Fist and an Ogre Crossbow. And he's got the Cult Leader upgrade for the big BSB. My core is pretty simple. 5 Tribesmen with Musician Champion, and then 3 units of 4 Tribesmen. I've got 6 Yetis with a Champion. I've got 5 Scrappling Trappers. I've got 2 Scratapults. I've got a Rock with an Ogre Crossbow. And I got a Slave Giant with a Great Weapon. So, I don't know, pretty simple, pretty straightforward. That's my Ogre list. So, we picked table sides. I want to say I actually chose the side with the building in the middle of my deployment and the rune, and I wanted to give my opponent the extra water features. This was out of the map pack, and my opponent, with his disciple Lugar, special rule, opposition research, decided he wanted me to draw out my Rock first. So I placed it on this hill that I had on this side of the battlefield. So he starts off with the deployment with marching columns, and he deploys these vassal levies. My apologies. I'm gonna apologize right now. The photo viewer that I'm using is doing this weird thing where it's starting the photos on the left and it's popping them in the middle. It's happening for some of the photos. If anybody's got a solution to this, I'm using a PC. Put it in the comments. I don't know why it's doing it. But I apologize right now. It's going to be irritating to me too. So I drop 4 Tribesmen, and I then drop a Scratapult after he's dropped 3 of his Turok Anointed. He drops his big block of Ziggurat regulars with his Overlord. Well, I mean, his Overlord's not in there technically yet, but he's about to be, and so is his BSB. I drop my other Scratapult, thinking that the Scratapults are somewhat of an okay answer to that big block with the Lethal Strike. And then let's take a quick look at magic. So I have on my Thaumaturgy Shaman, he's got Children of Yomi because of Magical Heirloom. He's got Cleansing Fire, Smite the Unbeliever, Trial of Faith, and Wrath of God. And then on my opponent's Cultism Prophet, he's got Hand of Glory, Curse of Nebuchadnezzar, Mark for Doom, and the Grave Calls.
Have your channel, Lamasu.
And then on his Lamasu Scholar, he took Deceptive Glamour and Word of Iron. So, this is the rest of my opponent's deployment, as you can see. He puts his 2 Titan Mortars in the Lamasu behind that impassable terrain feature. He puts his big unit of Vassal Levies. Well, it's only a little bit bigger than the other one. In the 21 Vassal Levies, the Prophet of Ashruk is in there on his Seat of Authority. He's got his Infernal Engine, Steel Juggernaut with the Nappa Thrower next to them. Then he's got his 15 Disciples of Lugar in that forest, and his 3 more Turok Anointed with Great Weapons. So my opponent places his objective in this corner of the board, next to these Tribesmen. So this is where my opponent needs to get his scoring units, of which he does have 3 across, and I deploy the rest of my list. So I decided to put my BSB behind and next to all these different the artillery pieces, the artillery chariots, the rock, because he does have that arrogance overlord across from them, and I don't necessarily want them charging into that. I think I definitely underestimated how effective that's going to be. You'll see that a little bit. And next to them, I have my Shaman in the 5 Tribesmen with the Musician and Champion. I've got my General on his Tusker next to my Giant, and then I have 4 more Tribesmen, in 2 different formations, and I have my 6 Yetis with my Mammoth Hunter, who he's not quite in that picture, but he will be in a little bit. I decided to place my objective behind these Disciples of Lugar. I felt like this side of the field was definitely a bit less guarded. So yeah, I thought I'd maybe try for that and just try and stop my opponent from scoring. I Vanguard up my Yetis because I think they can take those Turok Anointed if he wants to charge, and I wanted to put as much pressure as I could. I scout my trappers into the field to trap it, and then I just kind of vanguard him over to be a little bit more in the middle. Not really. If you really wanted to charge them, I would be fine with that. I got things to countercharge them, and my opponent has turn one, so let's get into it. So turn one, the anointed charge. I held. I tossed my spear, but he made his 6-up armor save. And then this is the rest of the movement. So definitely on his left flank, or the left flank, he kind of directs a lot of attention that way. As he's got that impassable in his middle of his deployment, or on his side, half of the field. So he is a little bit split up, but he just moves a good chunk of his army that way. The Infernal Warriors just march up 9. They really are not worried about anything on that side of the field. The Truck Anointed and the Vassal Levies on the right are being a little bit more guarded, just because that Rock is on the hill, could get a reroll, could that thing going to the Truck Anointed has no problem killing that unit. Yeah, pretty much just marches forward, moves his Titan Mortars to shoot my general. Yeah. He gets Flux Card 7 turn 1. He gets marked for Doom off, but I make my Aegis save, which was incredible. And he also gets Deceptive Glamour off over here to reduce my offensive and defensive, which hurt a little bit. Meant that I believe it just meant I was being hit a lot easier by him. And he puts Evil Eye on his Steel Juggernaut. And then we go into shooting. He shoots his Napa Thrower at these tribesmen. He only does a couple wounds, but it does, put that -1 to hit on all the, pretty much everything in this picture right here. The giant, the Tusker character, the other tribesmen, which definitely is really good. The Aether Cloud, I definitely underestimated how good it was. This Titan Mortar misfires and just can't shoot for a turn. The other one hit, and I make another 5-up Aegis save on turn 1. So that was pretty spicy, because, yeah. The only bad thing about this guy is he's pretty vulnerable. I mean, he's definitely asking to get smacked in the face by stuff. He has decent saves, but, they came up good this turn. With the impact hits, going right into combat here, these Turok Anointed do 2 wounds, which was nice. That means I didn't lose any attacks. And then we go and we bring, we do end up doing 7 wounds, which I thought was pretty solid. He ends up doing, I think he ends up doing 4 more wounds. His champion hits and wounds with all his attacks, which was crazy. Which I think he was hitting on 2s and wounding on 2s, so not terribly surprising. We, I think, end up tying combat, actually, because he had to charge 6 wounds. I had 7 wounds. So yeah, we just barely tied combat, and I reformed to kind of, make myself a little bit thinner, and make sure I have all the attacks. He's probably just going to issue a duel next round anyway, but that's fine. So that was only combat turn 1, so we go into Ogre Khan's turn 1. Thankfully, he was not able to march up enough to make my Rock want to charge him. So that was helpful, even though I guess the Rock has friendly anyway. So I actually just moved the Rock off the hill. I didn't have any charges this turn. I just was going to line up my Scratapults to pump shots into the Ziggurat Warriors. I moved up my Giant and my General a little bit to maybe charge something turn 2. I then just move up the rest of my tribesmen too to pretty much support that. The tribesmen really just want to get across the field to get by that objective. I'm pretty confident I'm going to beat this Trokanoid in combat, and then hopefully be able to do something next turn with the Yetis. And other than that, it's like an okay so far. I got Flux Card 2, which is a little disappointing turn 1. I do get Trial of Faith off, or I try Trial of Faith, and my opponent stops it. And I do get Smite the Unbeliever off for resilience, so that could be helpful for the Scratapults. Unfortunately, the Scratapult number one misfires and can't shoot the rest of the game. So, yep, that stinks. But the other one hits, and I think it peels off 7. So, rolled a lot of 6s, so that was nice. And I think the Ogre crossbow does a wound too from the Mammoth Hunter. So that was cool. I did also get Cleansing Fire off, which ended up being really critical because this Mammoth Hunter whiffed and the Breath Weapon killed the Trocanoids, so that was very lucky. I want to say it was just a Strength 4 Breath Weapon too. Yeah, it wasn't Strength 5 or anything, so I was able to just poke a couple, might have even been Strength 3, and I just pulled up a couple 6s and he couldn't pass any armor saves, so anyway, very dicey there. I almost could have got stuck fighting him in another round, but that's okay. We pull out of that, and happy about that because I think those Yetis are a good match against Disciples of Lugar, and they're out of combat. So this is what the end of WoodwardCon's turn 1's looking like heading into turn 2. So he decides, his shooting isn't particularly effective. He was thinking about getting rid of the channel on the Wizard Master, but then he was thinking, well, I might be charged next turn. So he actually just tosses this thing into combat. I mean, it's great in combat. So he charges into the Giant. I elect to hold. And then we are looking at the rest of the Infernal Dwarf movement. So... his center with the Titan Mourners, I chaffed them last turn with the Scrapping Trappers. So he actually charged the one that couldn't shoot into them, which I was okay with. They're within range of my general, so I figured good chance that they just hold that up for a turn, which I think is helpful. And he moves up his warriors to now both the chariots are going to have to take the frenzy test, which definitely stinks. And then I'm kind of zoning pretty well with the Rock on the right side of the field, which I'm happy about. I'm glad I got the Tribesmen too. They can possibly do a little bit too to help maybe turn that around. Honestly, if everything dies on the right side of the field, then I can maybe get a scoring unit on that objective on his left corner by that forest. I think that's a pretty good trade if you ask me. He gets Flux Card 8, which is going to be tough. So he puts Ward of Iron up on these guys because he knows they're going to probably get charged by something, and he's just trying to I did take a good chunk out of them the last turn, as you can see, but they're not going to be even tougher with this. I had to let it go because I knew he was too close with all of his occultism, which I'm able to stop the rest of his magic, thankfully. And his Titan Mortar doesn't really get to do anything. So he shoots over here and he rolls, pretty well actually. I think after moving and shooting on long range, and he kills a whole ogre, and he panics these guys unfortunately. So they are running, not off the field yet, but they are getting close to that board edge. This one actually I think also misfired and took a wound on itself, so that was nice. And he does put Flammable on my general here, my Mammoth Hunter general, with his Vassal Levies, so that's a little spooky. And then we go into combat, and I was actually kind of disappointed with my rolling here. He goes first, and I think he puts 4 wounds on me. And then I go to attack, and I'm just hitting on 4s, and I think I only get 3 hits, and then I get 2 wounds. So that's okay. I was hoping to another wound, possibly 2. So I'm actually down by combat quite a bit, but I rolled double 1s for my break test. So I'm actually sticking around. I think I only needed a 6, but that was nice. Unfortunately, I did not set myself up well with my general to countercharge. So we'll see what happens next turn with that. This combat goes about as what I thought it would. He does a wound to me. He's got a charge and a wound. I didn't do anything to him, and I stick on a 7. So that I was okay with that. And going into Ogre Khan's turn 2, I decide to put the Yetis in the rear and the tribesmen in the flank with the hope of possibly doing enough wounds to this thing to kill it before it goes. Unlikely, but on the chance that it does happen, that would be great. But yeah. So, and then over here, it's a bit unfortunate, but the one scrap launcher that could still shoot fails its frenzy check. This one actually had Discipline 9 too, and charges in. The one that wasn't Discipline 9 passes its frenzy check on a reroll, and just moves like this. And I mean, I figured that, you know, this Redipulse, it actually took 2 wounds charging out of the rune. I mean, he's gonna destroy that, so he's not gonna have anything to pursue. And then if he wants to chase this Stratopole, I'm fine with that, because it's relatively useless at this point, and I wanted to try and threaten some of that artillery in the middle with it. So that's why I moved that up there. I attempt to make a longish charge into his vassals, and he flees. So then I think I redirected maybe into the Lamassu and then just failed charge. So I moved forward a decent chunk. The tribesmen run off the board, which was a bummer. I really kind of felt like I needed them. Now it's going to be a lot of work for this Rock on its own. So I just moved the Rock over. We're going to see what we can do with that. Pretty much everything just is, you know, starting to move over. You know, we want some distance between those Ziggurat warriors, which again I'm trying to put some speed bumps in between them with the Stratopults too, but they're definitely making me nervous. I move up my tribesmen on the left over there just to sort of have them in range to maybe do something in conjunction with the Yetis against the Disciples of Lugar. And I get Flux Card 5, which was great. I think I ended up having 9 dice, which was very exciting. Or actually, no, I saved 1, so I must have only had 8. I want to say the only thing I get off is this Wrath of Gods, and I rolled 3 6s. So that shaman is dead. So I used the shaman as the marker for the Wrath of God, and I put it right next to these Titan Mortars, thinking, well, when those vassal levies rally, they'll be in range to get hit by it, which could be helpful. You know, the Lamassu will just be able to get out of the way. Not really going to do too much to Ziggurat warriors. I was debating about putting it down on the right flank to help with the, you know, Turok and the Turok and the vassal levies over there. I decided I wanted to try and get rid of this shooting, so I put it right here. And then this is quite interesting. So he beats, this time he again beats the vassal or the Scrappling Trappers by 1. They do flee this time. There's 3 of them left. They roll like an 8, and my opponent rolls a 9, and he actually gets into my character. So nothing, not too terrible. I mean, this is a good way for me to get rid of these, so that was relatively fortunate. And then going into this combat, yeah, this one was tough. I tried to get Trial of Faith on this, or not Trial of Faith, Smite the Unbeliever to reduce its resilience, but my opponent stopped it. And I just feel like I had so many attacks, and I feel like I was rolling so much dice, and just the odds were definitely just not showing up. But, you know, like I feel like I should have been getting a couple more 6s here or there. My Mammoth Hunter just whiffs, like he only hits twice or something like that and wounds once. So like he does a wound. I want to say the Yetis do a wound, and yeah, just the tribesmen had so many attacks. You know, they each got an impact hit. They each got like 4 attacks. Like the hit, I feel like the hitting, I was hitting on 3s. And I rolled like 10 hits, or like just bad. It was just bad dice everywhere, and I only do 2 more wounds to this thing, and it gets to go before the giant, and it kills the giant because it's got a grind, and it's got 3 attacks, so it has plenty, you know, had plenty of attacks to kill the giant. And I think he rolled 3 grinds, so yeah, that was just a little bit of a bummer right there. Which I feel like it was just a combination of the giant not rolling well, and then these guys just not rolling all that well either. So we do end up winning combat, and like like my flank, which I actually looking back on this, I reformed this not as well as I could have because I turned my Yetis and my Mammoth Hunter to face the Disciples of Lugar, thinking he had something like a 12, 13-inch charge or something like that, which isn't far, but far enough for him to want to take it. And at least I'm thinking if I put him like this, I can put two Yetis on this, Steel Juggernaut, and then I can have two Yetis. I'm a champion, and my Mammoth Hunter against Lugar. It's not great, but uh, it's kind of what I felt like I had to do. Looking back on this, I should have just moved my Tribesman over because this thing is so big. I could have moved the Tribesman over, and then actually just hung one of the Yetis off, like towards the bottom of the screen, so that I probably could have added almost like a couple more inches of their charge, and at that point just made it like a very unlikely charge. I don't know. Yeah, and I probably also could have made it then that he would have had more DTs going through the rune, and I could have maybe still put my Mammoth Hunter on that side so that he could go and still do a bunch of attacks and still do stomps on them. Yeah, I think that's what I should have done because I actually gave up a lot of combat res by getting rid of that rear, which ends up being unhelpful. So we'll look at that when that happens. And yeah, these guys just mulch the Scratapult. So now we're going into Infernal Dwarves turn 3. This is at the end of Ogre Khan's turn 2. So these guys do end up charging the Scratapult, which flees. I think it takes a couple DTs, which again, I'm not too really worried about that point. And then they try to make a long charge into my Tusker character, and they fail it. These guys thankfully fail their charge, which sort of a bummer in hindsight, where it's like they fail, and then I'm losing attacks now against the Steel Juggernaut. But again, I feel like I had to prepare for that. And then my opponent just moves up his Scraplings, and that's moves up his his vassal levies on the right flank there, and moves his truck where he can charge me afterwards. And I mean, I'm doing what I can. I don't have my magic anymore, and I'm definitely worried about my scoring units now because they're actually not in great places. So he gets Flux card 4, and he gets Curse of Nebuchadnezzar from these guys to lower their skills, which is just overall rough because it makes me hit worse. And he gets Subject Glamour over here, which also is rough. So basically, I was hitting on 3s everywhere. Now I'm hitting on 4s everywhere, which is just frustrating. And he puts the Evil Eye on these guys, so I thought that was a pretty effective magic phase. I want to say I had to stop. I don't know what else I would have maybe had to stop, but yeah. I think I stopped Word of Iron because I did not want him to get a better armor save on that Steel Juggernaut. The Wrath of God comes down, and just very disappointing. I roll 4 inches. It doesn't hit anything. Yeah. Very sad. So, this is actually skipping way ahead. So, this has skipped ahead quite a bit, which goes to show how frustrating that last combat was. So the Yeti combat, Yeti, Steel Juggernaut, Tribesman combat, is where we go next, because my opponent really didn't have any shooting to speak of. I think he has a Titan Mortar, but it didn't hit. I go ahead with all my attacks. I only have 2 Yetis, the Mammoth Hunter. Again, I feel like the Mammoth Hunter is just rolling really poorly. He's like hitting twice. I mean, I guess now he's only hitting on 4s, but he just rolling poorly. Not really doing a lot of damage. I do 2 more wounds. I think I had 3 wounds total, but he made his armor save. So that was, he was gonna make some of them, but I almost kill it before it gets to attack. Actually, it probably was attacking first in a couple spots too, because his agility is like 2 or something like that. And actually no, I think we were the same agility everywhere because the Yetis reduced him and then he reduced me in a couple spots. Regardless, the thing ends up doing a ton of wounds to my Tribesman block, and I think there's only 2 Tribesmen left with maybe 4 wounds between them. and I did 2 more wounds to him. So I ended up losing combat by like 3 or 4 or something like that. The tribesmen stick, and the Yetis with the Mammoth Hunter flee. And I had my BSB reroll for them too, but they just couldn't stick around. And that's where I was really regretting, not having that rear, because I want to say I would have passed otherwise, especially and then I would have more Yeti attacks, might have killed that thing. Yeah, just all around, just ended up being really frustrating here. So this is my Ogre Con's turn 3, where this guy charges in, and there really wasn't much else that happened. I want to say I charged my Rock and some Vassal Levies on the right flank. He almost gets a wound through with his impact hits, but he makes an armor save with the Steel Juggernaut. And then the Steel Juggernaut gets the opportunity to kill the rest of the tribesmen, which sucked because I lost another scoring unit. And I go and I kill it. And then I reform to be like this. So yeah, that ends up being a bit tough. And on my Ogre Con's turn 3, the Yetis don't rally, which really, really was unfortunate. They don't go off the board, but then I actually, they're fleeing, and the Disciples of Lugar are right there. So I end up having to chaff basically with my block of 4 tribesmen, so he can't just push my Yeti unit off the board. So yeah, just turn 3 was all around just a big mess. As you can see here, I was able to break his vassal unit. They flee, and I took 1 wound in that combat, and then we're really going into Infernal Dwarf turn 4 because these guys are charging him, which I sort of knew going into that was going to look like. I kind of felt like that was the only option really available to this model over here, considering the tribesmen fled. Oh god, he just gets a grave calls off. I even tried to, I want to say I tried to stop this one, but I couldn't. And he gets 3. He only did 6 wounds. I made 3 armor saves, and then I made 0 Aegis saves, which was sad. So he puts 3 wounds on my Tusker General over here. And these guys charged in on Infernal Dwarf's turn 4. I did 3 wounds, and then he goes and he kills 2 and leaves another wound on another one. I flee, but he just ends up rallying, or I think he was straining, because he's trying to sort of defend that against that objective. On Ogre Con's turn 4, the Rock and the Anointed fought on his turn 4. And I killed 1 when they charged, and they, I think, did 4 wounds to me. And I was able to stick on my Steadfast, so that was nice. So I can try and do something again this turn. I just moved my General, sandwich in between the Titan Mortar and the, which I moved close enough where the Titan Mortar flees a March test, it can't shoot me. So I thought that was maybe going to be helpful. And I just figured I'd threaten the Vassal Levies, because, I don't know, I was either thinking I just march away with him and try and preserve his points, or I'd try and chaff something. I really wasn't sure what to do. My tribesmen do rally. I also charged my Mammoth Hunter BSB into the Disciples of Lugar. It's not a great matchup for him, but I just felt like I needed to do something. I also tried to charge my 5 tribesmen. They needed an 18 on the charge, and they failed. But I mean, that's pretty much to be expected. Yeah, here's a sort of another picture of it all. He comes in and he only does 1 wound. I swear, my Mammoth Hunters just... And this is not to say Mammoth Hunters are bad. This game, I just could not roll anything with them. I mean, he's only hitting on 4s with his Iron Fist. He's only wounding on 3s. But I still just sort of meh dice with my Mammoth Hunters. He takes 2 wounds in a turn, so he ends up, I think, tying combat, or maybe even winning by 1, but then these guys don't go anywhere. The Rock tries its damnedest, puts 4 more wounds on the unit over here, but he's able to, with his champion, do that 1 last wound, which is just a bit of a bummer. So yeah, these guys end up killing the Rock. And looking now at, I guess, Ogre Con's... Oh, this is the end of Infernal Dwarves. This is the end of Ogre Con's turn 4. and now we're going in Ogre Con or Infernal Dwarves turn 5. So he moves up his Ziggurat Warriors, who have had a long journey to get to the middle of the board. He moves out his Asherock Wizard to sort of see what he can do against my General. And his Titan Mortar did fail its March block test, so that was nice. I appreciated that. It can't shoot me this turn. It can shoot the Scratapult, which it's going to try and do. I moved my Scratapult to try and defend against the objective. He was able to sort of move out of the way, which was okay. Probably should have had a wider arc, but that's fine. And yeah. He puts Curse of Nebuchadnezzar on this guy, gives him a flaming marker. He puts Deceptive Glamour on these guys, which just had to let go at that point. BSB dies, takes 2 more Lugar with him. And then going into Ogre Khan's turn 5, I decide to charge the Yetis. He decides to flee. He does not flee far at all, and I get to catch them. So that was nice. Left me a bit of a predicament of how I'm going to reform. So I ended up sort of reforming with my General or my Mammoth Hunter facing the Lamasu, and I'm kind of just in the woods entirely. Go like in a weird formation. Keep moving up with my scoring units, trying to see if I can get the objective. I also charged my Tusker guy into the combat the levies. He did not die the last turn. So figured he might be safer in the combat. It goes okay. I kill a bunch, but I couldn't break his steadfast, so he gets to stick around. And Infernal Dwarves turn 6. He tries to charge the tribesmen. They flee. He tries to charge the Yetis. He fails. I had to hold that. They couldn't really go anywhere. It was a long charge. It was like a 15 or something, 15 or 14. And then he just starts managing them. He gets Grave Calls off, blows up like half of them. Tried to stop that one too. Couldn't. He gets Mark for Doom off, kills the one more, so gets him down below quarter. So he's got half points on the Yetis now. Thankfully, they don't flee. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Hogart, Vassal Chieftains, OP. Oh my goodness. Issues a duel. I accept. Pokes a wound through. Fail armor. Fail Aegis. Bye-bye General. Yeah. And then I was thinking about this too. If that stinking Wrath of God came down and actually hit these guys, I would have broke them on the turn I charged. I would have broke them. And I would have killed his Vassal Chieftain with impact hits if he issued a duel. Because the rest of the unit can't really do all that much, but the Chieftain's just OP with Strength 4, AP1 with his AP2 with his spear. Chieftains are so stupid. Can't stand them. Hate them. So on Ogre Khan's turn 6, I get to rally my tribesmen, thankfully. I have to charge the Temple Lamasu because he actually blocked really nicely. He actually moved it up to Breath Weapon them, and he didn't do any damage. I actually almost needed him to do damage so I could have marched past him, but then I couldn't really march past him to claim or to tie the objective because he's got a Trick Anointed on his marker, so I had to charge to see if I could somehow do something. And I charged the Yetis and the Mammoth Hunter into the Vassal Levies just to get a little revenge, I guess. And they do claim the revenge. I can't do anything. I actually was getting wounds on the Lamasu and it was just making too many saves. And it did, I think, 2 wounds back to me. So yeah, bummer there. Couldn't really do much there. And this is the end of the game. So he's got a Strucknoided on his objective, and they're definitely very bloody, very brutal, but he's got tons of points left over in a lot of places. So let's look at how that breaks down. So looking at the points breakdown, Ogre Khan's got 1,465 points up the Infernal Dwarves. Infernal Dwarves got a very solid 3682 off the Ogre Khan, so that ends up being a 22-17 difference, which we were both helped by the core rule for the core special thing for this Long March Home special rule, where I actually got to only give up about 300 points from my core, and my opponent only gave up 125 points from his core, so that ends up being an 18-2 Infernal Dwarf victory. or when it's all said and done. Almost could have tied that objective if I. Well, I mean, a lot of things could have happened, but yeah, I mean, damn, Infernal Dwarves, very solid. And it's not to necessarily say that it was only because Infernal Dwarves was really good. I thought my opponent played well. I definitely feel like I made some blunders with my Mammoth Hunters, so I've never played with three of them. Looking back, I don't know why I was. I don't know why I was so far away with that BSB. I mean, I know he's not particularly kitted up to survive, but he's also got Resilient 6, and my opponent didn't have a ton of shooting, and I had a lot of targets. So, yeah, almost looking back too, I almost felt like I should have just had the Mammoth Hunter. I mean, I liked the Mammoth Hunter and the Yetis together. I don't know if they really need to rock together. Yetis are pretty solid on their own. And that Mammoth Hunter can also do a lot on his own too. So I definitely I kind of thought like, oh, these Yetis and this Mammoth Hunter can rock together, and it was definitely good, but a little unnecessary at a couple points. Yeah, I don't know if I think it could have helped to have more things charging. I definitely played the middle wrong. I should have had my Tusker character way closer to, the big steel juggernaut instead of the giant, because the Tusker character definitely would have been able, I think, to hold up better against that. Just has saves, whereas that giant is definitely going to take. When I held the charge, I was definitely hoping for him to do a lot of wounds, and then the giant to hopefully do a lot of wounds, and then maybe get rid of it the next turn, with one of those combo charges. Didn't quite work out that way, unfortunately. But yeah, that's the way it happens sometimes. So everyone, I want to thank you for watching. Please enjoy this battle report to your heart's content. And I want to also give a shout out saying I got another video coming out on Monday for the Dread Elf Alpha Lab. I'm going to be talking about the Raiders and the Destroyers from that new lab. So that's pretty exciting. And don't forget to look out from a lot of other content coming out about that today and the rest of this weekend and into next week. See you soon, and have a good one.